What if I told you that a single aircraft carrier, given up for dead, repaired in just 48 hours when it should have taken 3 months, changed the entire outcome of World War II's most decisive naval battle? This is the story of USS Yorktown, a ship that refused to die, and the 1,400 workers who performed what the Navy called a miracle to get her back in the fight. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most incredible repair jobs in naval history, the resurrection of USS Yorktown before the Battle of Midway. If you're new here, we cover the untold stories of World War II, so hit that subscribe button and let's get started. To understand why Yorktown's repair was so miraculous, we need to go back to May 8, 1942, exactly 1 month before Midway. Yorktown had just finished fighting in the Battle of the Coral Sea. During that battle, an 800-pound Japanese armor-piercing bomb penetrated her flight deck and exploded deep inside the ship. The blast tore through 3 decks simultaneously, killed or wounded 66 men, and caused catastrophic damage. The explosion destroyed uptake passageways, the vital channels that carry exhaust gases from the boilers. Without functioning uptakes, Yorktown couldn't make full speed. The bomb also knocked out boiler number 1, started massive fires, and left a gaping hole in the flight deck. When she limped into Pearl Harbor on May 27, 1942, she was trailing oil and looking like a ship that had been through hell. Admiral Chester Nimitz came aboard to personally inspect the damage. After the inspection, the assessment was brutal: 90 days to repair Yorktown properly. Admiral Nimitz looked at the Navy Yard commander and said something that seemed insane. "We must have this ship back in 3 days." Not 3 months. 3 days. Nimitz knew something the Navy Yard didn't. American intelligence had broken the Japanese naval code. American cryptanalysts led by Commander Joseph Rochefort had been reading fragments of Japanese communications. The intercepts revealed a massive operation targeting something called AF. Rochefort suspected it was Midway Island. To confirm, he had Midway send an uncoded message saying their water distillation plant had broken down. 2 days later, codebreakers intercepted a Japanese message reporting that AF was short on fresh water. AF was Midway, and the attack was scheduled for early June, less than a week away. The entire Japanese carrier striking force, 4 heavy carriers with hundreds of planes, was heading toward Midway. The Americans could muster only 3 carriers to oppose them: Enterprise, Hornet, and potentially Yorktown. If they could get her seaworthy in time, without Yorktown, the Americans would face 4 Japanese carriers with only 2. With Yorktown, they'd have 3 against 4, still outnumbered, but with a fighting chance. Everything depended on getting Yorktown back in action. On May 27th at 1:30 p.m., USS Yorktown entered dry dock number 1 at Pearl Harbor. Before the ship even settled, work crews were swarming aboard. Over 1,400 workers descended on Yorktown simultaneously. Welders, pipe fitters, electricians, ship fitters. Every skilled tradesman at Pearl Harbor was assigned to Yorktown. They worked in shifts around the clock. The work never stopped. Let me walk you through what they actually had to do. First, the structural damage. The bomb had blown a 24-foot hole through the flight deck. The repair crews cut away tons of damaged steel, fabricated new deck plating, and welded it in place. But there wasn't time for proper repairs. They installed steel patches, reinforced with supporting beams. It would hold, but nobody knew for how long. Second, the uptake passages. Repair crews crawled into damaged uptake spaces that were hot, cramped, and filled with toxic fumes, and welded patches over tears and holes. They rebuilt the uptakes in place under incredibly dangerous conditions. Third, boiler number 1 was completely knocked out. Repair crews worked inside the boiler room in temperatures exceeding 120 degrees, replacing pipes and welding steam lines. Fourth, electrical systems. The blast had severed dozens of electrical cables. Electricians traced every damaged circuit, spliced in new cable, and tested every connection. Fifth, ventilation systems had to be rebuilt throughout the ship. Without ventilation in the tropical Pacific, interior spaces could reach 140 degrees, and they did all of this in 48 hours. Some workers literally didn't leave the ship for the entire 48 hours. They ate at their workstations, caught quick naps on deck, and went right back to work. Several workers collapsed from exhaustion. While repair crews worked on structure, supply crews formed human chains passing ammunition and supplies aboard. On May 29th, less than 48 hours after entering dry dock, Yorktown left Pearl Harbor. She wasn't fully repaired, but she was seaworthy and she could fight. About 120 Navy Yard workers stayed aboard to continue repairs, even as the ship steamed toward battle. These men volunteered, knowing they were heading into combat. On June 4, 1942, Yorktown took her place alongside Enterprise and Hornet, northeast of Midway Island. The Japanese fleet was approaching from the northwest with 4 carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. At 9 a.m., Yorktown launched her strike group, 17 dive bombers, 12 torpedo bombers, and 6 fighters. These planes would join attacks from Enterprise and Hornet in one of the most famous moments in naval history. Around 10:25 a.m., American dive bombers caught 3 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, with their decks full of fueled and armed aircraft. In just 5 minutes, all 3 carriers were burning wrecks. It was one of the most devastating strikes in naval warfare history. But the 4th Japanese carrier, Hiryu, was still operational, and she was hunting for revenge. At 12:10 p.m., Yorktown's radar picked up incoming aircraft. 18 Japanese dive bombers from Hiryu were headed straight for her. Yorktown launched all available fighters and turned into the wind to maximize her anti-aircraft firepower. The Japanese attack was coordinated and professional. They came in high, around 14,000 feet, then dove almost vertically through intense anti-aircraft fire. American fighters and AA guns shot down most of them, but 3 bombs hit Yorktown. The first bomb penetrated the flight deck almost exactly where the Pearl Harbor repairs had been made. The patch job, the quick repair that was never meant to be permanent, failed. The bomb went through the deck, through the second deck, and exploded in the uptake spaces, knocking out boilers again and starting massive fires. The second bomb struck near the smokestack, killing or wounding dozens of anti-aircraft gunners and starting more fires. The third bomb hit near the island superstructure, destroying compartments and killing more men. Within minutes, Yorktown was dead in the water, burning and listing 7 degrees to port. Captain Buckmaster ordered abandon ship, believing she was finished. But here's where the story gets even more remarkable. After the crew abandoned ship, damage control parties went back aboard and discovered that Yorktown was still salvageable. The fires were out, the list was controlled, and she was still afloat. They got her under tow, heading slowly back toward Pearl Harbor. Then, on June 6th, the Japanese submarine Itabashiwai 168 found the wounded Yorktown. The submarine fired 4 torpedoes. 2 hit Yorktown, and 1 hit the destroyer USS Hammond, which was tied alongside providing power and pumps. Hammond broke in half and sank in 4 minutes. Yorktown absorbed the torpedo hits, but still didn't sink. She remained afloat throughout the night. But on the morning of June 7th, she finally rolled over and sank, taking 141 men with her, men who had died in the battle or who had stayed aboard trying to save her. So was the 48-hour repair worth it? Absolutely. Yorktown's aircraft participated in the devastating attack that destroyed 3 Japanese carriers. Her presence forced the Japanese to split their attention between 3 American carriers instead of 2. And even after she was hit, Yorktown absorbed attacks that might have otherwise targeted Enterprise or Hornet. Most importantly, Yorktown's participation tipped the balance of carrier strength at Midway. The battle was fought with 3 American carriers against 4 Japanese carriers. A reasonable fight. Without Yorktown, it would have been 2 against 4, and the outcome might have been very different. The Battle of Midway was the turning point of the Pacific War. Japan lost 4 carriers, hundreds of irreplaceable veteran pilots, and the strategic initiative. After Midway, Japan was on the defensive for the rest of the war, and it all depended on 1,400 workers at Pearl Harbor Navy Yard who did 3 months of work in 48 hours. The men who repaired Yorktown never fired a shot in the battle. Most of their names are forgotten, but their contribution was just as vital as any pilot or gunner. They proved that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with weapons, but with welding torches, wrenches, and sheer determination. Admiral Nimitz later wrote, "The Yorktown's presence at Midway was essential to our victory." The men who put her back in fighting condition performed a miracle. They saved not just a ship, but perhaps the entire Pacific campaign. The story of Yorktown's repair reminds us that war isn't just won by heroes on the front lines. It's won by thousands of people behind the scenes, shipyard workers, codebreakers, engineers, who do impossible things because failure isn't an option. Those 1,400 workers didn't get medals or glory, but they changed history. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.